Hey Disney cruisers, and welcome back to the DCL community where we are your destination to get excited for and help you plan the most perfect Disney cruise. You guys know me, I am Rebecca, your admin and host of the DCL community, and we are so excited tonight to be talking about a subject that's been getting a lot of heat recently with some mechanical issues that have happened, some weather. So as you guys are coming in, please say hello and let us know where you are viewing from so that we can say hi. But just quickly, Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura. I'm with Fairy Tale Journeys by Laura, and I am here to answer any questions that you have and to go over a few policies that seem to get lost in the mix. Um, so if you have questions, put them in the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to get to everything tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll go ahead and put Laura's contact information up on screen, and I'll make sure to put that in the comments as well. But Laura is a travel agent. Her planning services are free to you, but one of the perks of working with a travel agent is they have your best interests at heart. So they're a resource for you, right? If you have questions about what your cruise contract actually says, and we're going to be getting into some of those nitty-gritty details, Laura can be that resource to make sure that you are having that perfect Disney cruise, or perfect as the laws of nature will allow. But let's go
Correct.
ahead and let's start diving into, I guess, the cruise contract is probably a good place to start. Do you
Let's
want to dive
start
in there?
there.
Yeah.
So when you check in, and actually when you first book, whether you book through an agent or you book right direct through the cruise line, there's actually a section of your confirmation at the bottom that goes over few important details, and sometimes we don't read them all. And the only reason I'm going to bring them up tonight is because there were some issues in the past month where a ship had mechanical issues and got stuck in a port to fix them, and weather stopped them the next day of getting into Castaway Cay, and it's very disappointing. I get it. But
Yeah.
in the cruise contract, it says that your itinerary is subject to change. And that's a big one. That's huge. That means that be be between the time you book and the time you sail, Disney can change that itinerary. And there's many reasons that could happen. It happened a lot, actually, pre-COVID as things were starting to shut down. Ships couldn't go places. So you'd get an email from Disney and it would say, your port's being swapped with this. They're entitled to do that. But when you're sailing, sometimes the weather will stop a ship from going in. And Castaway Cay is one of those islands where the weather gods have to be with you. Can't be too
Mhm.
windy, the currents can't be colliding. The ship has trouble getting in. Grand Cayman is another one that has trouble porting in bad seas because the ship
Oh,
has to
yeah.
tender. So
That's
I've been on
right.
sailings where I missed Grand Cayman on two different sailings, and we come in and you could see the waves blasting up against the coastline, and they try, and then you pull away. This is all part of the cruise contract, and while it's very disappointing, Disney has the right to do that. They don't owe you a refund for this. That's what you're signing in your cruise contract. If they do anything for you, like give you an onboard credit, that's out of the kindness of their heart. Um,
Mm,
and getting $100 onboard credit pretty much pays for activities on the ship that you might want to do. A few extra drinks, a
right.
tasting at $50, a spa
Yeah.
treatment. I mean, it's really nice of them to do that. And I get it. It's so disappointing when we don't get to go to the ports. It's not the captain's fault.
Mm-mm.
He tries to get in, but he can't put the ship in danger. He can't put you in danger. So
Yes.
these things happen, and it's for your safety. Weather is an issue that nobody can control. A captain can't go, I'm going to sail this way, and the weather's going to be better this way, and somehow miraculously get you in. That's why he
Right.
might change a port. He might say, can't go to Cozumel, we have to go to Costa Maya. Um,
Right. I think, and I know that when people get so upset, and just like you said, you have a right to be upset, absolutely. But Disney's trying to keep you and your family and everybody on board safe. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but I think if you kind of think of the reverse of it, personally, we were on board when a tropical storm was hitting, and the captain had to reroute to keep us safe, and it ended up working out. Yes, there were, high winds, but it worked out to our benefit because otherwise, what's the alternative? Just canceling your cruise? Nobody wants that, right? And ideally, Disney would be able to, if Disney ran the world, including the weather, they would
Oh,
happily send you to every port on the itinerary. But I guess a question for you, Laura, is there an itinerary that you wouldn't book because of these risks, or is that something you just can't consider when you're booking a cruise?
it's hard because you just don't know what the weather is going to be. I mean, look, we all know hurricane season, right? So if you're planning to take a cruise in hurricane season, your cruise could very well be rerouted. But let's face it, they can't get into Castaway Key sometimes in January or February.
Yeah,
And look, it's not only Disney, it's any other cruise line out there. It doesn't just strike Disney. These cruise contracts are out there for any cruise line that you sail. Um, and as disappointed as we do get when
yeah,
we can't go somewhere, I think it's very unrealistic to expect your cruise line and to get upset when you don't get a refund when you're on cruise and you're
yeah.
getting all your services. So
And
the
what if
ship that
some?
broke down, when I want to just
Oh
talk about
yeah.
the ship that broke down um, and got stuck in Nassau, none of the services stopped. Everybody had their dinner. They even had the pirate party on deck. What did they miss? The fireworks. Now, that's a disappointment. We all love
Mhm.
fireworks, but the weather was really bad too. Coming off Castaway, he couldn't do the fireworks. He couldn't get into Castaway. So it was a look, it was a perfect storm on that sailing, but
Yeah.
everything else was working on that ship. So what was lost? You weren't sailing that night. Okay, you were in port, but everything else was working. You're not going to get
Mhm.
a refund for that. Like,
Yeah.
your servers are still serving you dinner. You're still able to use the clubs. Nothing stopped working for you, just the
Right.
engines.
Yes, yes, which didn't impede the ability to enjoy the evening. And I guess just hopping back to the ports not being able to get in,
Mhm.
I know that there's port fees, and sometimes you'll actually get a refund for port fees if those change. So
That's true. Yeah.
any kind of tips or nuggets of wisdom there?
So if you, let's say you can't get into Grand Cayman, because that's another one that's hard to get into, and you had Port Adventures booked there, and
Mhm.
of course you're charged your port fees and taxes. In the event that you can't get there and your captain comes up and says, "I'm sorry, this is a sea day. We can't get into port. The weather won't allow for it." Immediately, you're going to be refunded your port taxes and fees immediately. It'll be back on your credit card before you even get home. It's not something they put on the ship, it's something reservations has to give you back.
Got it.
Um, they won't charge you. So if they've charged your onboard account for your port adventures, those get refunded to you right away as well. So that you'll see on the ship. It says they
Perfect.
probably charged them already, so they'll reverse those charges. Now, if you're someone who books a port adventure outside of Disney, um, that's something you have to probably eat the cost on, unless you
Mhm.
can contact them and say, "Hey, my ship couldn't get in. Can I have a refund?" I don't know that they all do that. I think they keep your money because of the 24-hour cancellation policy, but that's, you didn't book through
Yeah,
Disney.
yeah. So
So
there
kind of.
there's risks involved with that, but I guess if there's somebody who, let's say they're doing the Western Caribbean and they weren't able to port at Grand Cayman to do an excursion there, and they didn't have anything planned for Jamaica, are you able to book a last minute excursion on the app while you're on board, or is there a place that you can go to book excursions?
Absolutely. You could go to the Port Adventure desk, they'll help you. And as a matter of fact, when they turn it into a sea day, they scramble. They really scramble to give you a sea day um, with all the activities that come with it. And they'll tell
Mhm,
you to check the app to grab activities. So they'll throw in there tastings. They really quickly have a plan B and
mhm.
try to make your new sea day
Yeah.
A typical sea day. So they'll tell you to check your app. They'll tell you to go to the port adventure desk to help plan out that day. And then if you wanted to add something at your next stop, you could.
And how do they communicate these changes to you? Is it just all through the app? Do they make an announcement over the loudspeaker?
It's announcements. The captain will tell you you're not going in, and then usually your cruise director will come on with a ton of information. And
Perfect.
also announce in case you missed it, what's happening where. They're very into, hey, boys and girls,
Yeah.
this is happening at D Lounge, or, they'll tell you what's happening.
Yeah, and I
They
was
don't
gonna
leave you.
most people just crave an extra sea day. So I know that it's definitely disappointing to miss certain ports of call, but getting extra time on the ship is not a bad thing. Um,
Yes.
I
The
just,
hardest thing, and I get that on that wish sailing, there was a wedding
oh,
that was
yes.
supposed to happen. Now, this could happen on any sailing. If you're planning your wedding, and I've had clients this has happened to, it could rain on your wedding day at Castaway Cay, and now it's moved inside on the ship. I've
Hmm.
had that happen. There always has to be a contingency plan. It's like
Always.
if you go to a destination to have a wedding, you can't control the weather. You can't
Hmm.
control the flights. There's always that kind of risk. So to the couple who was supposed to get married on Castaway when the ship couldn't get in there, it's devastating. It was where they wanted to get married, but it's not like Disney didn't give them a wedding. They
Hmm.
got married on the ship um, at sea. And I'm sure they offered this, and they had to have picked a secondary venue when they booked the wedding. I've done these. I've booked these weddings. So you have plan A on Castaway, but you have to have plan B for if the ship doesn't get there, if it
Yeah.
rains. They had a beautiful venue. They had a beautiful wedding. Maybe it's not what they wanted,
Hmm.
but they weren't going to get a refund.
Right. And this is, I know so often people plan, they overplan their vacations where they want to plan every second of every day. And this is just another reason why you've got to kind of let yourself relax a little bit and just kind of enjoy the ride. Disney's going to take care of you. They want you to have a great vacation so you keep coming back. But this is a great reason to have a travel planner like Laura in your back pocket for when these things may come up. And I did want to just say hello. We've got people watching from North Carolina, San Diego, Illinois, Vegas, Orlando, which is awesome. Guys, send in your questions if you have any while we've got Laura on. She is here to help. Laura, would you say that these sort of things happen often? Is this something that people should be prepared for as soon as they step on board, or are these kind of the rarities?
They don't happen as often as one would imagine. Like
Yeah.
it's not like every sailing goes out there and you have a problem. Um, it really, you just can't tell when something's going to go wrong. So you
Yeah.
just have to like be prepared.
Yeah.
Um, I wish I could give you okay, this time of year, this is going to happen, and this island is going to be harder to get into. It it
Right.
really, honestly, other than hurricane season, which, the obvious, um, I
Yeah.
really couldn't tell you. Like,
And even in hurricane season, you could have sailings that go off without a hitch and there's no bad weather. And then it's just that one day, Mother Nature, I wish she listened to the cruise schedules, but she's got a mind of her own. So, like Laura's saying, have a plan B in mind, know that if things don't go exactly how you want, Disney's priority is to keep you safe and happy on board. And speaking of safety and happiness, I know there was also a medical emergency recently. So, do we want to touch on that?
yeah, let's touch real quick on the medical emergency. So, if there's a medical emergency, and if you're on, I've been there, if you've been unfortunately on a sailing that has one, you might hear Bright Star announced in the middle of the night. These aren't good, and nobody's lying. So
No.
when I see comments where people are going, oh, it wasn't true, it wasn't a real emergency, the ship was broken a week ago. No.
Mm-mm.
When you hear Bright Star, That's a bad thing. It means somebody is not well or has passed. And when that
Mhm.
happens, the ship is going to go to its nearest port. Now, when you're on a Bahamian cruise hanging off the coast of Florida, you're right by Miami, you're right by Port Canaveral. If it has to turn around for a medical emergency, it's going to do that. And it's going to take that
Mhm.
family and it's going to disembark them. It's
Yeah.
not going to sail with a family who just lost a loved one. So you have to kind of be kind.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Be kind. It's they're terrible situations. Now, it happened to me in the Caribbean, and the family we it happened in the middle of the night. I thought my son was talking in his sleep. Um, but it goes through all of our staterooms because it has to go through the crew quarters as well, because they're
Mhm.
assigned certain areas. And you felt the ship speed up, and we went from a sea day directly to our destination, um, to disembark that family in the wee hours of the night. And
Wow.
then we went back to sea. These things happen, and if they happen during the day and they will send a chopper, but
Mhm.
they can't always do that given a certain situation. But like I said, Disney has an obligation to help and assist a family in this
Yeah.
situation. So getting angry, getting upset, saying it's not real is really not helping a family who is heartbroken and sad. Um,
Right.
Kindness. I don't know where kindness went. It's
Yes.
it's it's a post-COVID world, and just
Yes, to have grace and give grace, because if you were in that situation, you would want people to do that same thing for you. And I mean, I know I've been on cruises where a chopper has had to come in for one reason or another, and it's just heartbreaking to think about, your family vacation that might have gotten derailed because of a medical emergency. Nobody wants those and nobody plans for them. So kindness
correct.
is key.
And it's a derail for 2 hours, 3 hours at most while the ship is in port, filling out
Yeah,
papers and doing the right thing with a family. Your
right.
vacation will be fine,
Yeah.
but take a deep breath because a
Yeah.
medical emergency is just that. It's a medical emergency. You're
Yes.
not going to get a refund for that either.
No,
It's a
no.
medical emergency. Kindness.
Yes.
Um, Disney insurance, get it because it will cover. This covers if, let's say, you are the family who has to have the chopper come because that's at an expense. It will cover cancellation, lost luggage. I've heard nightmares where the luggage gets lost.
That happened to our family.
It covers all sorts of great things. The medical insurance is the most important insurance to have, and the delay. And let's say you missed the ship because you weren't paying
Mhm.
attention to Jimmy the night before when he told you the all aboard time and you get left on the island. The insurance will help you to get to the next destination to meet the ship. It's a
Yeah.
very important thing to actually have.
Yes, and I know a lot of people say, "Okay, well, if it's a waste of money, I don't actually need it." But we're talking all these situations where you're not planning for something to happen, but it could go wrong. And I guess, are there ever situations where you would recommend a different insurance? Maybe Disney's insurance isn't as all-inclusive as some clients might want it to be.
You can always look outside of Disney. Some people find it for less money, but please make sure it is you have a cancel for any reason, and
Mhm.
please make sure that it has medical coverage. So you're not just insuring, because I know there are insurances out there that just do, I'm going to just cover my trip and my travel, my airline.
Yeah.
Think about medical because that's something that can go wrong on a Disney cruise or any cruise line. You could get
Mhm.
sick and have to go see the doctor on the ship. You can get hurt and
Been
have to go
there.
see the doctor on the ship. Your
Yeah.
medical insurance isn't gonna cover it, they don't take it. So it's gonna get charged to your onboard account, it's not cheap, but when you get home, we start a claim and the insurance will pay you back what you
Right.
paid in the medical. So that is the most important part of the insurance, and that's why I always tell my clients, "Get the insurance." Um, and to me, it doesn't matter whether it's Disney or outside Disney. Disney's easier because you could wrap it in the price of the cruise.
Right. Is there anything that's not included in the Disney insurance?
Um, if you don't book airfare through them, it's not,
Mm,
your airfare's not covered.
got it. Okay. So I know some people have, if you have the Delta credit card, you might have some trip insurance through Delta, but if not, that's something you're going to want to make sure that airline coverage is included.
And
Um,
when you book your airline, I mean, you can pick insurance right there before
yeah.
you. Usually really cheap. I think Alliance does a lot of the airlines
Yes.
insurance. Insure the flight too. I mean, get all the
Right.
insurance because anything can happen.
And speaking of flights, this is probably another reason that you always recommend coming in at least one day in advance of your cruise,
Oh,
right?
please,
Because
please, please come
yes.
in the night before, especially with the way the airlines are now.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yeah.
the ships leave without you.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Give
come in the
yourself that
night
peace of
before.
mind.
And if you're in the Northeast in the wintertime,
Oh yeah.
New Yorker here, 2 days before, because you don't know if you're going to have a blizzard up there. Like,
Yeah.
get yourself into place. I
Yeah.
always never worried about getting stuck after the cruise, but I always worried about getting to the cruise. It's not going to wait for you. So please, please, please fly in the night before because
Right.
they pull that thing at 3:45. You're not getting on the ship. Like I've
Yeah.
had clients miss the ship and I always go, why? Why
Yeah.
didn't you listen to me? Like,
Right.
please, there's nothing we can do for you. Like, there's nothing. We hope you have insurance at that point because it's not refundable day of just because you missed the ship. So have insurance and come in the night before.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and we understand that hotel costs and taking extra days off of work are things you have to factor in. But that's why having someone like Laura to help you in your planning is so important because she can look at, okay, how many days do you have? What's your budget? What are your priorities? What is your family like? Like, does your daughter really love Frozen or whatever it might be? And she can help you put those pieces together so that you're not just stressing and hoping, wishing, praying, and then you're in this situation. Um,
Exactly.
and we've got so many great questions coming in. Go ahead if there's one that you want to.
I'm about to have to reschedule due to not being and to pay final payment. I have no insurance. If you haven't made final payment, you should be able to add insurance. You can't add insurance after you pay in full.
Got
So
it.
add it before pay in full. You should be fine. You shouldn't have to reschedule.
Perfect. And if you're
And
not
there's fees
able,
for rescheduling. Like
oh, I didn't
if
know
you're,
that.
yeah, we're back to COVID's over. It's
That's right.
now pre-COVID rules. So let's go over those real quick because these are things you don't want to find out the hard way. So
Yeah.
once you hit your pay in full window, you are in the penalty phase. And this is on your confirmation. Your travel agent should go over these with you. It's there in black and white. So you pay in full, and the minute you do that on your pay in full date, you start to lose your deposit the day after. And it's in penalty. Now, you could move it, but there's going to be a fee associated with moving it. So, where this isn't pre-COVID where or during COVID where you could call and say, I'm sick, and they'd be like, okay, stay home, let's move your cruise. Like now the fees are back.
And
So just know that that's another reason you want the insurance to
and
cover the
up
fees.
until that pay in full date, if you decide that you have to cancel because change in circumstances, you get all that money back, right?
Or we can move it with no fees.
Perfect. And speaking of payments, can travel agents get extensions on our payments?
I wish. I mean, we try. We will call and beg, and they do on a case by case. It's really tough. Uh, Their final payments are pretty much stuck in stone. I think I've been able to extend one once, and it was for 24 hours. Like,
Got it. Okay, good to know.
it's
And
all
then,
cruise lines now, all cruise lines. And actually, Disney was holding out longest. All the other cruise lines are charging fees even during COVID.
Yeah, I was gonna say Disney's
So
been very slowly returning, even with the check-in process. I mean, that's just starting to roll out, and I mean, still Pearl and Platinum cruisers aren't boarding priority yet. You know, it's very, very slow. So Disney's been patient with this whole kind of returning back.
I'm sorry, I see a question that has to do with my cruise line that shall remain nameless that I don't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Uh,
Uh, no, Disney will not do that. Disney avoids them, and that's why your itinerary is going to change. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
yeah, I was gonna say Disney, if you and they don't do the bridge tours, but if you can imagine, the mapping and weather systems that they have are so advanced and are probably better than some local TV or radio stations. They are watching everything that's happening out at sea to keep everybody safe. So if there is a
And
storm, I was gonna
and
say,
that's what happened with
yeah,
Castaway Key.
yeah,
They knew they couldn't get in.
yeah, and
They know.
that happened to us once with that tropical storm, and we had to move, and it was go through a tropical storm on a ship, which I don't think anyone would recommend, or be safe in a different place. That's a pretty easy choice. So Disney is monitoring that so that you don't have to sail through
Yeah,
anything.
you're not sailing through. They're not going to go into them. They'll see them and avoid. Not to say you won't have rough seas, because let's face it, if there's a tropical storm in the area, the seas are going to be rough, and there's
Yeah,
no way to avoid the rough seas, but
yeah,
they can avoid the storm associated with the rough seas.
yeah. I was gonna
I like,
say the ship was rocking, but that's why we always sail. I've got sea bands. I was traveling this weekend. I even bring them on planes because I get motion sick like nobody's business. So I've got my sea bands. You bring your Dramamine if that's what you want. Talk to your
go
doctor ahead
up to
of
the
time.
upper deck, sit on your veranda, fresh air helps,
Yeah,
but the captain can't find, like, have you ever looked at the ocean?
yeah.
I love the comments. Why couldn't the captain steer us into calmer waters? It doesn't work that way.
I was gonna say that whole phrase about a drop in the ocean. It's a phrase for a reason, right? One little
Like,
thing here.
like
Yeah,
you're not going to avoid the rough seas if there's a storm. He could avoid the storm, but he can't avoid the rough seas.
yeah,
So outside is the, I know people like to go to their stateroom because they don't feel well, but the, the fact of the matter is fresh air is the best place to be when you're feeling that motion sickness. So I always
yes.
tell my clients and myself, if the seas are a little rough, you'll find me on the pool deck just sitting,
Just
breathing in fresh air,
grounded. Yes, yes.
fresh air, and then
Yeah,
it tends to pass. But
yeah. I was
seas are
gonna say
seas.
it's not gonna last forever. And it's just speaking of seas and sea days, if a port day turns into a sea day, will people be able to book a reservation at Palo or another restaurant if you weren't able to book one previously?
Now, it depends on when Disney decides to X out the port and make it a
Mhm.
sea day. If it's done the night before and Palo thinks that they might be able to, they have enough supplies to do another brunch, they might open up some more. But keep
Mhm.
in mind that Palo brunch, Remy's brunch, those foods are pre-boarded based on the food that they'll need. So there has to also be food available for that venue.
Yeah.
But they'll always tell you to check the app. So it is a possibility that you would be able to get an additional opening
Yeah.
for Palo. But never give up on Palo, by the way. Make sure you've put yourself on wait list. Magic may
Well,
happen.
I was gonna say, Laura and I are Palo's biggest fan, so if you can get it, even now while you're waiting for your cruise, just keep reloading. Somebody just reached out on the Disney Cruise Line community Instagram and said, "You were right. You know, we finally got the excursion we've been wanting to open up for the whole family," and they sail next month. And people's plans change, cruises change. Keep
Never
researching
give
it,
up. And the
right?
minute you board the ship, depending on what ship it is. So it's either going to be at Royal Court or it's going to be, in the Luna on the Wish. They have Palo representatives there. Go ask.
Yeah, it's always worth asking. And I will say, just kind of going back to what we were talking about before about grace and being kind, remember that if something doesn't open up, that it may be because they don't have the team there necessarily to support it as well. The crew works really, really, really hard at understatement of the century, and they deserve time off too. So if they were supposed to be off when you were in port, you can't just expect them to drop everything and then be working, for what could be, oh my gosh, 18 hours. Have grace again. Be kind.
Also,
Oh,
since
yeah.
we're on the topic of the crew, this is something else that can go wrong on your cruise. You could be in Castaway Cay and the crew could be having a drill.
Oh,
This happened to me. It was a drill because they were going to be tested by the bigwigs and they had to pass. So they had to run a safety drill, which meant
oh,
that not all the servers could get out on the island. So
oh,
at
interesting.
Serenity Bay, the adults were forced to get up and go to the bar themselves. Now, I know that, oh, the horror,
I
you didn't
know.
have a server for the first 2 hours you were there. You actually had to go up and get your own drink. Kindness. It's not like
Yes.
they weren't working. They were
Right.
doing a drill.
Right. It's so true. They're
Like,
constantly working for the 3, 4, 6, 8 months that they are on board.
but I'm sitting on the beach and I'm listening to the people, adults, right? You're on, not children, adults, complain
Oh,
at the bar that they were, 2 feet away from. It was the horror that they had to go get their own drink. And of course, when they were done with the drill, we had the full service. But these are things the crew can't control. Like,
no.
Castaway Cay is an extension of the ship, which means you need the crew to get off the ship to service you. But
Yeah.
sometimes they actually have important things they have to do.
Right.
So,
I was gonna say, flip the script on that one a little bit. When you go to the bar, get 2 drinks so you don't have to go as far the next time, you know? One for the walk back and one for when you sit down.
my
Turn it into
goodness.
positive. But I know we're over on time, so if you guys have any last questions, be sure to send those in. And I'm gonna just put totally agree. Kindness is so important. I'm gonna put Laura's contact information in the comments so that you guys can reach out to her with any questions. And if clearly you guys can see she is an expert, let her help you plan your Disney cruise so that you don't have to worry about any of these things. But question for you, just as we're talking about the crew, I know that sometimes we'll get messages from people who say that they really wanted to sit alone at dinner and maybe they were sat with another family, or maybe the server, maybe the energy just doesn't vibe, which happens. Do you have a recommendation for how to handle that?
All you have to do is find the restaurant manager or the section manager. So you have the head server. If
Mhm.
you have spoken to the head server and the head server hasn't been very helpful, all you have to do is go find the manager. And all you
Mhm.
have to do is very kindly say, I really wanted to sit by myself.
Yeah.
And they will make it happen. Or the service wasn't great. Tell the assistant, they could have a bad day. They could have
Yeah.
a bad sailing. They could be brand new. They could not be feeling well. Maybe somebody at the table next door told them off. We don't know what's going on in their life. They're
Yeah.
human beings. They have bad days. So they're not always going to be 100% on, and that's terrible. Doesn't mean they're bad. Not every server does magic tricks.
Yeah.
Some do, some don't. My favorite servers don't.
Mhm.
Um, I've had them and they're fun,
Yeah.
but not everybody does. Like each has their own little niche. So
Yeah.
you hear some families get magic tricks or puzzles, and then some don't. But that doesn't mean you had a bad service crew.
Right.
But just go talk to somebody about it. If you sit there and stew for your 4 nights,
Right.
of course nothing's going to get done. And then you're upset and you come on the boards and everybody starts jumping in and
Right.
um,
The people who are on board are there to make your experience wonderful so that you become like Laura and I and get addicted to Disney cruises and go back year after year. But that doesn't happen without Disney getting constant feedback. So at the end of your cruise, you're going to get a comment card. Make sure you fill that out and get people their name and their country, because Disney, after every single sailing, the management team gets together and they read through every comment card.
they read every one of them. And if you don't have enough room on your comment card, open the desk drawer. There's paper, there's
Yeah.
stationery. Write out everything you need to write out, the good, the bad, the
Yes.
ugly. Write it all out, stick everything in an envelope, and stick it in the box.
Yeah.
Everything is read. And I know sometimes it gets a little much when the servers are constantly reminding you.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is in the line.
Yeah.
That's how they keep their job. They need you to give them a good or bad
Yeah.
comment. That's how they keep their job. And sometimes you give them a good comment, they get promoted up the line.
Yeah.
Or they lose their job. So for them, when they come to the table, it's not an upsell. I know sometimes you're just like, okay, I know, I'll fill it out. Yes, you're giving me great service. It's because they're actually concerned.
Right. And I mean, think about it like you with your job. If your manager, if your director, whoever it is that you report to, just never give you any feedback, how could you improve and know? I mean, I know some people are born perfect, and I'm super proud of those people. But for those of us who are human, just taking the time to get that feedback and give that feedback kindly. If somebody's not meeting your expectations that first night, you can have that conversation with them. If that's not something you feel comfortable with, like Laura's saying, find the head server, you can be moved, or find the restaurant manager. Disney wants you to have a great vacation. So I can say I've been on over 20 Disney cruises. There's just been one situation where we have had to change tables, just personally speaking, and it was because we were placed with a family who the energy just wasn't there. There was not much that either of us, it just didn't work. It just didn't work, and that's fine. And the next night, we were both at separate tables, and it was perfect. Disney wants you to have a great vacation. Just ask. Just ask. And if things can't happen, that's okay too. We would have just eaten dinner and not talked to each other. This has been awesome. I don't know if you guys have found this helpful. It seems like we've gotten some good feedback. If you have any questions at all, or if you need help planning your next Disney cruise with as little stress as possible, reach out to Laura. That is the link to her page on screen, and it's also in the comments. Her services are 100% free, and as you guys can tell, she is a wealth of knowledge. And we're going to be doing another one of these soon, right? Talking about all things for first-time cruisers. So if you're watching and you have not been on a Disney cruise, stay tuned for that, because that'll be coming up soon. Any last nuggets of wisdom?
No, just please be kind. Yeah. I mean, that's all I have to say. Just be kind.
Right. Yes. Right. What does Cinderella say in the remake, the live action remake? Have courage and be kind.
Have courage, be kind.
Yes.
At this point, I would just settle for just
be
kind.
Right. Right. Or as Thumper says, if you don't have something nice to say,
don't say it at all.
Yep. Exactly. Wisdom in the characters. Well, you guys have such a great rest of your day, and we will see you on board.
Everybody.
Bye, y'all.